All right, folks, welcome back to the Exam Interview, a podcast for Black educators. It's me, Dr. Asia. And we had a little break in August, but we're back. It's September. We're in season 5. And of course, as always, fire guests. Today we have Dr. Lance Bennett. We found each other through a good friend, Mia, who, shout out, she was on the show a while back. So thank you for the connection. Dr. Bennett, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Lyons, for having me. I'm excited to be here today and have this conversation with you. A little bit about me is that I'm a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a big Eagles fan, so go
Okay.
Birds, go Birds. It's a season's about to start off, about to run it back. Um, and so I'm my background is in higher education, and so throughout my career, I've been focused on providing educational opportunities to those who don't necessarily get a first shot at it, but also now I've shifted to also just doing more community oriented work within the realm of higher education, and so I'm excited to really just embark on this journey and to just have more conversation with you about how I got here and where I am today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have this conversation. We don't typically have a ton of folks who started in higher ed. We have
Hmm.
folks who maybe were in K-12 and then they became professors or some other journey, but yours is a little bit different. So I'm excited to hear your story. So let's start it off. Tell us about
Yeah.
your journey into education. How did you know that education was for you? What was that all about?
Yeah. So my journey to education really began when I was a community college student. So
Mhm.
when I was a student, I had this opportunity from one of my professors. She had an honors course option for our argumentation and debate class that she needed to give to one student. And so she reached out to me and asked, would I want to be part of this? And what it entailed was completing a term paper and then submitting that paper to a regional academic conference. And so
Okay.
at the time, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what academic conferences were, right? So I was a sophomore in college. I didn't know what it was. Never really heard about it, but I said it sounds good, so we'll just roll with it. And so I kind of caught the bug there. I was like, okay, I kind of like this. Okay, I want to keep doing this. Presented the paper and everything. So that paper was on. I'll tell you, it's a little bit technical, but
Let's hear it.
it was on President Obama's use of narrative rationality in his "A More Perfect Union" speech. And so
Mm.
you all might remember that speech, famous speech of Philadelphia, right after the Jeremiah Wright incident. And
Mhm.
so that he made a speech to pretty much, in hindsight, to save his campaign. Um, and it was just very masterful of how he navigated it. And so that stuck out to me even when I was 18, 19 years old. So that's how it really got started.
So I wanna back up a little bit that you started off in community college, and I
Hmm.
wanna shout out to community college. I also am a community college graduate, and I always wanna highlight the importance of community college in a lot of folks' life, and
Yes.
how for me, the professors in my community college were amazing and really
Mhm.
cared and helped me get on the path to education.
Yeah.
And so I always wanna shout them out because I don't know how many people um, have gone to community college and feel some kind of shame about it or hesitancy or whatever. But I've always want to say like that's so great. And so let me ask you a quick question as a side note. What made you decide, or what was the decision behind a community college versus a traditional 4 year at the beginning of your education or your higher ed education career?
Yeah. So, to be perfectly honest, I didn't have the best grades coming out of high school, and
Mm-hmm.
so I graduated 44 out of 50 in my class, and so I didn't, I needed a spot. I felt like to one that wouldn't just throw me into like chaos, uh,
Yeah.
and so I needed that couple of years to really just kind of get footing and grounding, but then I also was my mother graduated from the same community college when I was young, and so I was very familiar with the institution already. So it just seemed like a perfect sort of, okay, we're gonna do this couple years, we're gonna plan it out, map it out, get my grades up, and then we'll transfer, and that worked out perfectly. So so yeah, so that's what really made me do it. But plus also, I mean, it was affordable, right?
Sure. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I didn't have any loans from the community college. I had a little bit of loan from when I transferred for my 4 year, but that's about it. And so, yeah, I mean, back when I went was when I started college in 2010. Um, Folks were like looking down on community college. I even had people
Mhm.
tell me like, you made a bad choice by going. People literally at church telling me that you done messed up by going to this community college. You need to go to a HBCU, and you need to go to a 4 year. But interestingly, fast forward to 2025, people over time have, quite frankly, embraced community college. One, because of its affordability, um,
Yeah.
but two, because of dual credit and things like that, where folks can get high school credit college credit while being in high school. And so it's interesting though. Yeah.
Yeah, the dual enrollment programs have taken off for sure here in Denver or in Colorado. And I know even my niece, she graduated from high school, and then the next semester she graduated from community college,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I definitely am proponent, and I'm glad we have come a long way. So continue your story. You
Yeah.
transferred, but again, what was the major you
Mhm.
decided to go into? Like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, so I was a communication studies major, so my focus was on interpersonal and organizational communication. I really enjoyed the academic experience. Just I went to a liberal arts school for remainder of my 2 years, Eastern University, right outside of Philly, and I really enjoyed our conversations in the classroom. This is again small school, so I had so many like intimate conversations with my professors. I mean, like
Mhm.
our professors, like it was a type of school where like professors invite you over to their house for dinner. It was that type of place, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so we would have like these deep conversations about important societal matters. Um, and so like I was just like, okay, I really like this atmosphere and this environment. Like, so I asked my professors, okay, if I want to do this, if I want to get to where you are, what is it that I need to do? And so they're like, well, you need to go on to get your master's, then you need to go on to get your PhD after that. And so but they were like, in the meantime, what we can do is we can give you some experience by having you be a TA for some of the classes you already took,
Okay.
and while you're an undergrad. I said, okay, great. And so
Yeah.
those TA credits went on my transcript. And so basically, what I was doing was they gave me the opportunity to lecture, to grade assignments, and so it was really like a mentorship, apprenticeship type of experience. That when I got to grad school, like I already knew what I was doing. Um, I didn't have to like I mean, you had to go through TA training, but I already knew what I needed to do. And I knew how to teach. I knew how to construct the lecture, how to help students, in office hours. Like I had my own office hours, like as an undergrad
Mm.
student, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that's how it really began, right? And so then transitioning to my master's and my doctorate, um, but that was the foundation of it all.
Yeah. And so when I spoke to you, we had our kind of conversation you said that you were on the track to being president, like the president of a university track. I've
Mhm.
never heard anyone say that before. I know what a many of us know what a university president is, but the
Yeah,
track to get there, tell us because I want people to know like what that looks like. Is
yeah,
that very similar to what it means to be a professor? Then you kinda there's some other pathway or what was that,
yeah,
specific situation like?
yeah. So nowadays there are a lot of different pathways that folks can choose to, become president. The traditional one historically has been, you be a professor, you rise up, be a department chair, dean, provost, and president. However, I didn't want that path, and I'll tell you more about why. One, because I wanted to be strictly on the admin side, um, full
You don't
time.
like grading papers?
Not that much anymore. Not that much no more. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, for real.
Uh, uh, and so I didn't want to be on the tenure track. Originally, I wanted to pursue that path, but the more and more I started to look at some of the challenges with it, and I got some of that, early insight when I was a grad student. It really is a difficult, difficult. Um, I feel like it's an uphill battle in many ways, right? So when it comes to publishing, if you're on a tenure track, that's one of the main things you need to do. You need to publish, publish, publish. Um, I mean, I've published plenty of articles, and it takes a very long time for these articles
Yeah.
to get through the cycle, for
Mhm.
you to maybe or maybe not get it revised and resubmit, for you to maybe or may not get an acceptance after that. And so I've been through the process quite a bit, and it's kind of I feel like it's fighting a losing battle. So I said, well, I still love higher ed, but I want to really pursue this. And I'll tell you about the person who really like got my interest in this on that path was, so when I
Mhm.
was at the University of Iowa, I was a grad student there. I was invited to be on the provost search committee. um, the chair of the committee, she reached out to me, and said, like, I would like to have a conversation with you. I was like, oh boy, what did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
Did I not do what I was supposed to do or something? And she was like, no. I was talking to my husband last night, and I was telling him, like, I feel like Lance could be a college president one day. I could just see it. And so I was like, oh, okay. And now remember, I'm a grad student. I'm a grad student. And so,
Yeah, that's and
like,
so that's that to have somebody tell you that I know you're gonna finish this story, but what was
no.
the immediate thought in your mind when she said that to you?
My immediate thought was, okay, that's interesting. um, that's not what I expected to hear today. But I was like, huh, are you sure about that? Like, are you sure?
Mm,
Because that's the first time someone has ever said that to me. Right. And so,
mhm.
I was interested in administration and generally speaking, but to go all the way up, I was like, oh, okay. And so
Yeah.
I said, she was like, well, let's have a conversation with the president of the university. She says, I want you to get an internship in the president's office. I was like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. And so I got on the president's schedule. We had a conversation about just learning a bunch of legislative stuff, funding. So it's fascinating, right? It's like even as I'm talking, I'm thinking through like a lot of those experiences I had, even as a student. I was like, it's like I was like a paraprofessional. Like I was in the student space, but I also was like, I was doing some serious stuff. Um, in times in which I wasn't really technically supposed to. But my mentality
Mm.
has always been create your own path, right? Create a way.
Yeah, yeah.
If
And
it's not
people Oh, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
like if it's not like an established thing, create your path. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, make it up, because just because it's not done doesn't mean it can't be done.
yeah.
I think that's been one of my greatest strengths in this space of I'll create whatever the hell I want and I'll make it work. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, yeah, you're right, create the path, and I also think it's important, according to the way you're sharing this, is that it's important to be a good listener,
Mhm.
right? And to step into space when somebody's saying, "I think that you should be a this," or "I think that you should be a this," or "Can you please be my intern?" is saying, even if it's the first thought is, "Oh my gosh, I'm not qualified," and that I'm talking to in a general sense to anyone. But
Yeah.
it's like, well, someone saw this in me, so let me just see, right?
Let
And
me
I feel
just
like
see.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like you're sharing this, let me just see, all the way through your whole career, well, up to this point that you're sharing with us is like, let me just see, and people pausing and noticing how you're showing up in community, how you're showing up and in your classes and the work that you're doing to say like, hey, there's something special about the way that he's able to, you know, connect with students or get the work done or how he's writing. So I think that's really important. It's a combination of us like stepping in to these
Mhm.
spaces that may, like you said, like how did I go from A to J? But
Right.
don't ask questions. Just go to J and just
You
be
go to
there.
go to
Just
Jay.
be there. So I'm glad that you're saying that. We'll continue. So you
But
got this conversations happening with the president.
yeah, so, I ultimately didn't do the internship with him. Uh, it just, like, timing didn't work out, but I did do it in my dean's office, though.
Okay.
And so, I had a internship for a semester there, um, and I was learning a little bit about funding, and how programs get funded, and just basically, like, just helping the dean and the associate dean, like, strategize around, like, how to make programs that were struggling on campus more viable and more attractive for students. So yeah, so I have my hand in some stuff that I'm like, man, that's some serious stuff. Like, and
Yeah.
I think it's funny because even at that time, I wasn't like in the higher ed literature like that. So I didn't know what like the literature said. Some of it was just I felt like just like common sense of like, here's how we can make this program better for students.
Mhm.
And on top of that, um, I personally think about my how I grew up, how I grew up in church, and I feel like churches function very similarly as universities. I mean, our modern university does come out of the church historically,
Mhm.
so I think there's a direct, connection there, and just like even those experiences of like how do we get people to come to service and how do we get people interested, and you want to talk about fundraising, well that's tithes and offerings to me, right? Like, and so
Mm.
that's basically the same thing, and because no one has to give money, right? No one has to give money to an organization or to a church or to a university, but you were persuaded by something to give, and so um, it's the same sort of idea, same idea, and I just kept seeing that play out, throughout my time.
Yeah, I love this. And you're making a really good point. Um, I had to sit on that for a little bit because you're making a good point. That connection between higher education and or the programming and the church. Um, yeah. So you finished school.
Mhm.
Then what?
Yeah, so I finished my doctorate, in 2023, but while I was doing my doctorate, I had an administrative position, at the University of Texas at Dallas. I started off as assistant director of assessment. Um, I got promoted twice in 3 years, um, ultimately to being the director of assessment and accreditation and decision support. And basically, that's a fancy way of saying, one, the accreditation piece, making sure that our stuff is in order for our accrediting body. Uh,
Mhm.
and so there is that. Also assessing student learning outcomes, but also I had my hand in some strategic initiatives for the university too. Um, and one of those things was trying to design a continuing and professional education unit for the institution. My job in this was to design it from scratch entirely, design the strategy using our budget formula to figure out how to make it work, um, how not to put us too much in debt, to find a way to make us profit after a certain point, which I was able to do. Um, and so, yeah, so I think back to that was probably one of my favorite projects at the
Why
university.
why is that?
Because I love designing things from scratch. I do, and I like finding a way when it's messed up and when it's like
Mhm.
hard. I like finding a way to figure it out. Um, and I think that's just where I thrive the most. Like when it's really messed up. Um, I feel like I can find a way to do it.
Yeah.
To make it work, to accomplish multiple things at one time. Um, yeah, I feel like it's always I don't know, I feel like I think again, I go back to the my experiences with the church, right?
Yeah.
Like growing up in church, like that is black for black churches in America, that is one of the overarching themes, finding a way to make it work.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
building fund.
The building fund, we're gonna make it work, right? We're gonna make it work. And
Yeah.
I just see that theme just playing out in my life just over and over again of like, we may not have pieces A through Z, but we're gonna take A through J and we're gonna piece that together here to make it work over
Yeah.
here. And so the skill set, like again, it just plays itself in so many instances. Yeah.
Yeah. S-
So
so you're getting your doctorate and you're also work at the same university in which you're getting your doctorate.
no, no, I wasn't. So the
Oh,
doctor
okay.
was at St. Edward's University in Austin,
Got you.
Texas.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you're doing that and you're still thinking about the college president? And
I
so
was.
tell us
Yeah,
about that,
I
please.
was dead set on it. I was dead set on it. I was building the pathway through fellowships, gaining mentors. Um, yeah, I was doing it. I was doing it all. You know, doing conferences, doing a lot of things in the profession. Also, just reading heavily of just higher ed, just getting higher ed knowledge from scholars and authors, and just learning every possible thing I can about how a university functions from top to bottom. Um, I was yeah, I was dead set on it. Just learning about big and small, but also trying to plan my own trajectory about what type of institution I want to be at, big, small, public, private, community
Mhm.
college, 4 year, what it was, right? And so trying to bend it and make it work. Here we go again, trying to bend the situation and make it work how I can. But I don't know. But the challenge became, I think, a brush up against my educational philosophy, the type of institution that supports that philosophy, and based upon my pedigree, so to speak, what would be allowed to be where I would be pretty much allowed to serve it.
Yeah,
So
so this is a great transition to our question
yeah,
of yeah, I'm talking to you and you're not a college president, and
right.
you had when we talked, you said that just it turned out not to be for me, and you started talking about your philosophy.
Mhm,
So between 2022 3 and now 2 years later, we're not on that path anymore.
mm.
What was the thing or the catalyst that helped you decide maybe being a college president at any level, at least not at this moment, is not for you?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of different things. So I'll talk about the philosophy, then I'll just talk about some of the stuff that I've learned just from my
Yeah.
mentors and some of the stuff that's been going on in society. So like my philosophy is that I believe in learning for learning's sake. And I believe that learning should be, yes, we can educate for the workforce, and I'm all for that. Simultaneously, though, I believe that we should put just as much emphasis on helping people become better thinkers. And that kind of brushes up against most of the trends right now in higher ed. Colleges, universities are at a point where they're trying to actively fulfill many stakeholders' needs. The public wants to know what is the ROI, the quantitative ROI on a degree. And so with that comes, well, if I send my child to X school to major in X program, are they going to make X dollars?
Mhm.
So with that comes a whole slew of things that we ain't focused on you being a critical thinker as much. No, we focused on you getting that money. And
Mm.
so that for me is antithetical to my philosophy. Um, so take that combined with, I have mentors who are presidents who've experienced a lot of traumatic instances in their presidency. People, sending death threats,
Mhm.
people just being real nasty to them. It's caused a lot of health issues for some folks.
Sure.
Um, so that's that. At the societal level, look, we got some issues with going on right now with this administration, and it's really like trying to lead a place with two arms behind your back. You don't really have too much of an option in terms of how you lead this place. And so all of that combined, and the thing is, I don't foresee that eroding anytime between now and when it would be my time to be president.
Mhm.
So
S
I saw it. I said, okay, writing's on the wall. I feel like with all these things, and I'm out.
Let me ask, what at what point did it start to shine a light like, "Uh-oh, I'm starting to put it all together." Like, what was the timeline between that decision of or
Mhm.
that realization to, like, I'm officially deciding this is not for me? And what was that tug of war in the mind like? Because if you've
Yeah.
been on that train all for a
Mhm.
long time and you're like, "I gotta get off the train," that has to be a hard decision to make. Or is it? Or was it?
It was very hard because I felt like like a part of my identity like went away. To be perfectly
Sure,
honest.
sure.
And so I struggled with this decision for a long time. I've talked about it in therapy. I've talked about it with my mentor, talked about it with my wife, talked about it with, and so it was just like, yeah, so the timeline really, um, funny enough, it actually came out from an opportunity, potential opportunity anyway, that someone reached out to me about. So my community college was part of Jill Biden's initiative for getting community college graduates in the federal government and in the administration. So each community college who was part of this program can nominate like 5 or 6 alumni to interview to be part of the administration.
Hmm.
And so these would have been presidential appointments. Um, and so they would have ended when the new administration took over. Um, but I sent so nothing ever came of it, but I sent my application into the White House. And so it got me kind of thinking about like, well, what if I did something different that could have a larger impact?
Sure.
And so that's when it kind of clicked for me of like, okay, well, like the university is cool, but what if you could have a bigger impact and do something different to still fulfill the desire that you have to impact society? So that was the first instance. So right before that, though, one of my mentors told me we were headed to a Dallas Cowboys game. He had a free ticket. Now, I'm not a Cowboys fan, as we all know.
You already established that.
We already established that. But he had a free ticket. And so I said, yeah, I'm going to go. Right. Um, he said to me in the car, he said, I know you want to be a college president. He said, but I actually think being president should be your backup plan.
Mm,
I was like, and so like I was shook. I was like, what? Again, now it's the same time around the same time with the White House stuff. And so I'm shook, and I'm like, yo, no one has ever said that to me. Um, but then I was also at simultaneously in the middle of another job search, and I was a candidate. I didn't get the job, but the hiring manager reached out to me. He asked me, he said, we're not moving you forward, but I would like to provide you with some feedback. He said, would you be open to it? So I said, yeah, sure. Right. So I talked to him. He was like, what is your end goal? Like, what is your dream? And I
mm.
said, well, my dream is to be a college president. He was like, that's not good enough. And then I was like, what? So now this is the second time someone had told me this
Yeah.
basically of like, all right, you could do better than this. And because in my head, I'm like, this the highest, I'm saying, this is the highest you could get. Like,
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, theoretically, like, this the highest you could be. He was like, no, you could do way bigger things than that. And so that's when I was like, wow, um, okay, maybe I need to think about something different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it just keeps coming back to people really your whole this whole time, they're just sewing into you and just like, "Hey, you thought about this? Hey," and I love the way that community can support us
Hmm.
if we're open to it, if, if they feel like we're receptive, if we've been receptive in the past, people are saying, "I'm gonna say this thing and see what happens."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. My community has been so impactful in this journey, right? And I
sure.
think what's so great about switching and or combining both communication studies and education together is that one, I understand that communication is about the relationship piece and how we build relationships in whatever space. But the education aspect of it, I think it really helps to create a nice coupling of experiences. That one that I didn't expect would happen, and two, because all the stuff that I planned in my career, because I'm a big planner, right? But
Mhm.
I plan out lots of things.
Yeah.
There's actually very few things that I do serendipitously. Very few things, right? Like very few. And
Okay.
so things are planned out. In fact, like during this period, early 2020s, I had a 10-year like career plan. Like I had a spreadsheet of.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
I was serious. I'm serious. Of where I wanted to be,
Yeah.
position, boom, boom. Um, and so all that went out the window when I heard these two comments. And so yeah.
Yeah, that you talking to the therapist, talking to your wife, talking to the Lord, talking to right?
Everybody,
It's
yeah,
like, "But I have a spreadsheet, but
I'm
I've got an
right,
and
right.
what does that say to all of us, like the best laid plans. And we can think this is how it's going to be, and it makes sense when we're sitting there with our paper or our manifestation boards or and
Mhm.
then one thing or two comments or something that someone sees in us can change the trajectory of everything
Ooh,
that we ever want to do. And yeah, and I want to ask the question, what are you doing now? Because we're
yeah,
leaning into that. Um, and I want you to talk about like, so what are you doing now? What are you up to?
yeah. So earlier this year, I launched an organization called the People's Institute for the Common Good. And so this organization is about creating spaces for shared learning and critical dialogue about important topics in society that help us to create a better humanistic experience for the world. And so we do that through a variety of ways. One is our community-based book club, in which we invite folks, anybody, any person from any walk of life can be part of our book club. We're actually doing a series right now on the importance of friendship, where we're asking the question about what does it mean to be a good friend. Secondly, we have our monthly lunch and learns where we invite scholars, thought leaders, professionals to engage the community virtually about important topics. Right. So in the month of September, our lunch and learn is with Professor Leah Littman from the University of Michigan Law School, and she's talking about her new book called Lawless, and how the Supreme Court runs on fringe theories and conservative grievance. And
Mm,
so her new book just came out, and so she'll be in talking to us about just some of the pressing issues with that body that are going on right now. But then finally, we're launching a distinguished speaker series where we'll invite scholars, thought leaders to Dallas to have scholarly conversations about these important things. And so we've been able to successfully get a bunch of partners, community-based organizations joining us to be part of this. And so I'm excited about like what's to come. I'm excited about what we've done. I'm excited about people just me creating a learning space for folks to just learn without any stipulations. You ain't got to pay no tuition. You ain't got to pay
yeah.
no tuition. All you got to do is just show up and be part of a community just to get some extra knowledge. Yeah.
And that learning for the sake of learning, right?
Learning for the sake of learning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I want the audience to know that Dr. Bennett, when we spoke a while back, he's like, "Yeah, I'm having such and such come to the book club." I'm like, "Who is that?" "You don't know who that is?" I mean, I he had me buying books and pulling things up, and I'm like, "I don't know," "And you don't know who that is?" I'm like, "Oh, I need to get back into my books." Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
and,
yes,
it's so funny because, like, you know, when I was in grad school, I felt like I didn't have time to enjoy
yeah,
learning, like,
tell
ironically enough, right? Especially when I
yes,
was in my master's program, my 2nd master's program, I I don't know, I felt like I would just go into class, just reading studies and, but I didn't and I think with that 2nd master's program in particular, I think there was kind of a I think my approach to, like, education kinda started to change, but I couldn't articulate it, was like, I don't just wanna publish studies just for the sake of publishing studies.
yeah,
I wanna have I wanna use my work to impact people, right? Like, and I wanna be able to publish these things so that way folks can, um, make a change in their life, and hopefully we can make a better society from that. But, you know, and so but my faculty in that program, they wasn't vibing with that.
mhm,
They weren't vibing with that. They actually looked at me quite strange when I would bring that up. And to me, that is it's weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense for you to be against that idea because I believe when it comes to the education, formal education that we do have, the master's degrees, the doctorate degrees, I believe it is a sacred responsibility.
yeah,
It's a sacred responsibility. Like I have my robe up on the wall on my door because I feel a sacred responsibility of being an intellectual and being a scholar.
yeah,
To me, it is a commitment to society to improve society. And if you want to wear that, then you need to uphold that integrity and uphold that commitment. So that's what it means to me. And so yeah, so that's when I think things kind of started to shift a little bit for me.
yeah. I wanna know where the light bulb like, where were you when you're like, "Oh, I have an idea. I'm gonna
Mhm.
start this institute." I need to
Yeah.
know, we need to know because we're working a traditional job. We're doing things,
Right.
and then all of
Right.
a not all of a sudden, because you said it took a long time, but then there
Mhm.
was this, "I have an idea," learning for the sake of learning. Tell us about that window of time, that aha. Where did that come from? Where were you? Who did you share with? What was the
Yeah.
response?
Yeah, so this is funny. I'm glad you asked that question because so this actually came from a joke, right? So the joke was I was telling one of my my former supervisor actually, I was like, because we were just frustrated with something that was going on, at the institution. And I was like, you know what? I said, that's why I'm gonna start my own institution. I said, I'm gonna start my own. And then I and she kind of looked at me like, interesting. Um, Yeah, and so then I started, again, I read a bunch of higher ed books. Then
Mhm.
one of my favorite higher ed books is about like speculative design for new possible universities that can exist. And so, and then I read that book. I was like, I really like how he's playing with these ideas. He's a professor at Ohio State who's a historian who
Mhm.
studies the future.
Mhm.
That's his whole agenda. And so,
Okay.
so then I was at our national conference, the American Association for Colleges and Universities, and I went to a panel about startup universities. And so there was only a few people in the room. I don't know too many people who want to do that. And
Yeah,
so,
no, true.
and so I said, hmm, okay, maybe I don't want to go that far to having a full fledged university, but what I, but perhaps though, I could create a learning space that has the prototype of a university,
Mhm.
but is open to the public. It's free. It's community based. Um, and so that's when I got the idea. I said, okay, well, what would this look like? And like, it would need to be a nonprofit, and it would need to be, I mean, technically it doesn't need to be a nonprofit, but you want the tax benefits.
Sure,
And
sure.
so I said, well, okay, let's see what I could do. I literally, like, I mapped this out. I went back up to my hotel room, mapped this out. Um, let's see what I could do. See what I could do, and how would I build programs. And so again, the institute, it really, in terms of its philosophy, is a combination of a couple different things and a couple different ideas from those authors that I've read about
Mhm.
what learning spaces can be, and how they're centered. And now what's interesting is, I can't fully say where yet, but what's interesting is I've only been operating this for 4 months. But the good news is, one, we've gotten a lot of people who've been supporting us, who've been part of our journey, been part of our programming. And we also have a university that's interested in having their students be part of our programming
Oh,
for
wow.
college credit.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
yeah. And so that's huge. That is huge, because now it's like, okay, I'm fulfilling what I want the university to be by virtue of doing it this way, and by
Yeah.
partnering with existing institutions to help fill that gap. So, um, yeah, yeah.
What would your spreadsheet say about
My spreadsheet. What's funny? I actually need to see if I still have that
You need
spreadsheet.
to pull it out, and you need to
Yeah.
put it on the show notes so folks can see this
Right,
spreadsheet.
right,
Torn
right.
up, scratched up, torn up, yes.
Torn up. Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
look, listen, I think the spreadsheet would say, nah. It would just say,
yeah.
nah, we ain't doing that. Right. That's all cool and all, but nah, there's something better that you could do. Um, yeah, and like I said, some of this stuff just kind of came out of because of frustration
Mhm.
of
Which a
like,
lot of time it does, right?
right, of like, you know what, yo, these mugs tripping,
Yeah,
right? I feel like I got something to contribute, and I feel like the gaps that I see here, current leadership isn't fulfilling. They don't want to fulfill it. They ain't trying to,
that's exactly
but
right.
I got all this knowledge and skill and ability to fulfill that gap in a way that's different and unique. And so again, the institute is really, again, it's just about just coming together. Just, we got people who are, in Chicago, who join virtually to our stuff. We have people across the country.
Mhm.
um and that is really cool, because I mean, really, it was just supposed to be like a Dallas thing, and that's it.
Sure.
But now, man, we got folks in different time zones joining, and so, um, we had some guy in England join for one session that we had for one lunch and learn, and so I was like, "Wow, that's crazy," you know,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating, and so again, I go back to running this institute, preparing to be president of a university. So I'm learning all this stuff, fundraising, learning how to build programs, learning how to engage um, with people who've been part of your programming, right? Like, how to engage with students, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so I find it fascinating, because I was preparing for all of that, and I'm using those same skills here.
That's exactly right.
Those same exact skills I'm learning, I'm using over here. Um, and I feel like I could do it in a more genuine way,
Yeah, which is the
right?
best way, right? It's the
Yep.
best way because you get to have the freedom of your own ideas. Like, oh, that's not working. Quickly turn left or right versus let me go through the ranks and present why
Mhm.
I need to make a change and talk about the budget. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
this is why
And
it's
it's
not
funny
working. Let's move quickly.
because I actually had an experience with that a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago. So, so part of the challenge that we were having in the beginning was, some people were signing up for lunch and learns but not attending, right?
Yeah,
And so my goal was to kind of cut down from that. And so lunch and learns were free. And so I pretty much built like a pricing structure for the lunch and learns, right? The minimum was like $10. $10. and but the maximum you could pay was 150. You would get just lunch and learns forever, right? I thought
Mm.
it was a really unique structure that I
Mhm.
created, plus bonus content and a learning packet that you would get as part of that, right? A lot of folks didn't like that.
Mm.
And so what I thought was, trying to fulfill a gap, I immediately saw that, nah, this isn't working. So I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, well, let's just continue to make them free, but make it donation based. And we have a Substack, which is our newsletter.
Mhm.
But if you want the extra bonus content that you were going to get, you would just pay $5 a month to get the bonus content from the Lunch and Learn.
Got you.
So what that helps to do is, one, provide some stability for the operations, but two, continues to provide it accessible for all with the option to be part of this additional piece. And so I go back to some of the issues that I found in higher ed. Was the issue in higher ed is, in large part, is in order to partake in a small portion of this, you have to pay a fee.
Yeah.
Not the additional part. And so let's make the open access for everybody. And if you want sort of the upgrade, so to speak, you would just pay the extra small fee, which just worked. And folks started subscribing to it, which
Yeah.
allowed to more money and revenue to come in. Um, and so, yeah, that's what worked. That's what. And so, in this space again, and I think that's what's so unique about this is like you have opportunities to pivot when it's necessary, like you said, not have to go through the bureaucracy of all of that. So
Do you, Dr. Bennett, do you hear your story that this whole, I feel like this whole time that you've been on this path, you've been learning or being taught flexibility away
yes,
from the rigid ways that you think.
yes, yeah, and yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
It's so
Like,
funny. It's so funny. Yeah,
think
yeah,
about that. Like every
yeah.
time you think this is it, it's like be more flexible, be more nimble,
Hmm.
which is so counter to like you what you said was who you are.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah,
perhaps who you are is not a planner in the way you thought you were. You know what I mean?
right. Not in the way I thought I was, and again, that's a
Yeah.
lesson that I had to learn that
Yeah.
that really didn't hit me until maybe about 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That like and I think over the course of my lifetime, like I can truly say that option B and option C always is better than my initial option, my initial thought.
Audience, I want y'all to hear this.
Yeah.
I want folks to hear this because I know that we have so many people who are in K-12 ECE higher ed and they're like, "This is it. I'm gonna retire from here. I'm gonna do the," and they start seeing these exit signs and say like, "Time to get off. Time to do
Yeah.
something different." And they're like, "No, but that's not what the plan is. The plan is to retire and have my pension and do it just like this." And it's not always like that. And
It's
on
not.
the other side, it just can be so much better if we trust in ourselves and our intelligence and our community to take care of us and support us and to create new community. But we have to be open to that.
Yeah. And it's again something I had to learn. It was a hard lesson for me.
Sure.
It was a hard lesson because again, I think up until that point, yeah, there have been things that have helped me pivot and
Hmm.
but up until that point though, in terms of my plans for like my education, where I wanted to go and how it worked and things like that, it all pretty much worked out spot on because it was very much
Hmm.
methodical. Like
Sure.
it was methodical, right? And so like originally, I got accepted to only one PhD program because this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it, and I strategized the hell out of that.
Sure.
And yeah. And another funny story, this kind of goes back to like just the planning of it all. So when I was in grad school, I was in my master's program for communication studies. I was at the National Communications Association, and as a student, you could volunteer to have your registration fee waived.
Mhm.
That was major because I ain't had no money. The registration fee was like $800, something like that.
Yeah, of
A little
course,
pricey.
yeah.
And so I said, no, I ain't got no bread like that. And so I'm a volunteer, but I'm a volunteer at the table where you come and get your bags. And so what I did was I went to Vistaprint, brought my little business cards. I was stuffing my business cards.
No.
Yep. Yep. So yeah. So again, I grew up in Philly, so I got a little hustle to me.
Hustle culture,
Look,
yes,
I got a
shout
little
out.
hustle to me now.
I'm
Like,
not mad. Detroit folks, we do the same thing. We do this. We
it's
probably
look,
would have put a plate in there, some
look,
catfish and some
look, I was hustling. And I felt like I was passing out CDs out the back of my truck. But
You
like
were passing out CDs in the back of your truck.
but look, hey, and
Yeah,
the good news was like I was able to get people like reached back out to me.
sure.
And so I was like, oh shoot, because I didn't know anybody. This was a conference. This is my first time going. It was a conference of like 6,000 people.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I don't know nobody. Bet, bet. We gonna
that's so
build this.
smart.
And we gonna build this. And so, but yeah, I share that to say, like, again, over the course of my time and my profession and my life, I've been able to, do things that I didn't expect to do initially.
Mhm, mhm.
And it always works out in a way that you don't think about.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly right.
and but I think the thing to still do though is as you're doing what you're doing, whatever it is you're doing, continue to build skills in whatever way, continue to gain knowledge,
Mhm.
continue to learn, um, learn as much as possible, learn as much as possible. And I think that's what's always been like helpful in my case of like just being a sponge and just gaining insight about whatever. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and like I think that's why like within higher ed, it always worked out. Just because like I was willing to learn anything about the profession,
yeah.
any and everything. Um, and being able to apply those things into whatever situation I find myself. Yeah.
So, in this same vein of talking about the ebbs and flows and the turns and twists of your career, and how you talked about all the folks who've dropped little hints or not so little hints and asked questions, and kind of supported and guided you along the way. Is there or are there Black educators,
Mm,
professors, ECE folk, however you want to define education? Are
yeah.
there educators that you would like to shout out that have supported you on your path, either as in your career or outside of your career, that want to say their names out here right now
Yeah.
on the exit interview?
Yeah. So, one of my mentors from grad school, Dr. Tim Brown, we still talk to this day. In fact, we did a presentation together last year. Um, yeah, he's now a dean, and so we did a presentation last year at our convention. He and I met. So watch this. Going back to my community college experience, he was at that convention where I did that paper when I was an
Oh
undergrad.
wow! Oh wow! Yeah.
And so he came up to my poster because it was the undergrad scholars conference, like the little mini conference and the big conference. And so he came up to my poster. He was like, "I really like your topic." He was like, "I think so whenever I'm at Westchester University, and whenever you're ready to go to grad school, um, you should apply to our program, and you should reach out. You should, yeah, just keep in contact with me." And so
Mhm.
I did. I did that, and that's where I went to grad school. And so he was one of my mentors. I was his grad assistant, as well during that time, and we've kept in touch, and we've worked together. And I mean, he actually is trying to hire me to teach a class right now. And so yeah, so that he's one guy. I would say. Um, I would also say one of my mentors. Her name is Poppy McLeod from Cornell University. Uh, I didn't go to Cornell. but she was recruiting me for a faculty position at Cornell. And ultimately never worked out, but she really wanted me there. Um, what I learned from Poppy was it was important for me during the time in which we met because one, again, I felt like there were a lot of professors who didn't consider themselves to be educators, and that really bugged me.
Mhm.
To really care about their students. This is what I was seeing, right, at the institution that I was a part of, and it just was. But when I met her, I reached out to her because I was trying to get, I was trying to apply for postdocs and trying to network for faculty positions. I reached out to her. I fell in love with her approach to her students, her undergrads and grads. Like
Mhm.
they love her, and she shows so much care for them. And I was like, that's that's it. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Be that professor. Um, and so her for sure, but there are other professors who I've never had, who I've never met that I think I would like to shout out to. Bell Hooks is one of them.
Oh, can I tell a quick story about bell hooks?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I did a live recording of the exit interview at South by Southwest this
Oh,
year. Yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah, and so my friend Joy, Adizo Osborne, was my guest, and we were in the green room waiting for the folks to walk us to the stage for our live.
Mhm,
And there were two women at the table with us, and they were
mhm.
going to present in a different room. And on the back of my laptop is a sticker of bell hooks, and the
Love it.
woman says, "Oh, I love bell hooks. She was my professor."
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And Joey and I are like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, she was my professor undergrad before she transferred to whatever she went to, and I just loved her. She was such a great professor, and I used to go to her house, and we used to cook at her house, and I
Uh,
saw her in the airport once, and she screamed my name across the airport, and I couldn't believe she remembered me." And I'm sitting here thinking, of course, Bell Hooks was a professor,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
never think to see that her students would be around. This, you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so when she said that and so this is like she's having this conversation, and I'm still thinking I gotta go live and do this podcast in like 10 minutes. But to like that, I will never forget that day that
Mhm.
I met, yeah, one of her students. But go
That's
ahead,
amazing.
continue.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yes.
I think for her, so, like, I feel like that's, like, her approach to education and her approach
Mhm.
to learning is, like, I feel like I'm learning from her by reading her books, right? And
Yes, of
so,
course.
teaching us how to love and teaching us how to build community,
And
teaching
how
us
to transgress.
Yes, 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 and so, so her another Black educator, one of my favorite scholars, Ruha Benjamin. She's a professor of sociology at Princeton University. Um, one of my books, one of my favorite books of hers is Imagination. Um, and I feel like I learned from her is, you know, just continue to think about the worlds that don't exist yet,
Mhm.
and that's where you put your energy, right? Put your energy into addressing the problems, providing space for your imagination to flourish. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so those are the Black educators to me that have encouraged my journey, both who I know personally, and both who I know personally, and those who I just been a part of just because of their work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Um, my final question for you. For you, you spoke about therapy,
Mm,
and having mentors. So my question is like for you, what does it mean to be well?
that's a good question. I think for me, what it means to be well is to um, be satisfied with and be content with your decisions to pursue whatever path you pursuing, and be okay with some people not liking it, some people not approving of it, some people upset about it, whatever the case may be. But there's a certain level of satisfaction and happiness, that joy that comes with knowing that you're doing what you want to do and you've carved out your own way. Um, to me, there's not too many greater feelings than that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So that's what being well means to me, but also just knowing that you have the ability to create and co-create with other people things that you want. Like that is like because I feel like our society puts a lot of restrictions on us. You need
Mhm.
to go to school for 4 years. You need to do it right after high school. You need to do it this way. You go get your job. You go get this. You go get that. A lot of those norms are starting to break, though. Um, yeah, Gen Z's not having that.
Mm-mm.
They're
At
breaking these
all.
norms, which I'm for, right? I think it makes a lot of sense. But to carve out your own path and to say I'm gonna do things this way, um, in a way that may not have been done before.
Yeah.
Um, I think that to me is what wellness includes.
Thank you. Finally, you're talking about this work, this mindset around what higher education could be, book clubs, lunch and learns. How
Mhm.
can people find you if they want to connect, if they want to be a part of the movement that you're creating? Let's
Absolutely.
give us all the information.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can connect with me directly on Instagram. My direct Instagram is at Common Good President. And so my,
Hey,
yeah,
president.
listen. And so and so yeah, but the institute itself is at Institute for Common Good. And so you can find us there. We also could connect with us on LinkedIn as well. And so on both of those platforms is where we post our events, our our information about what's coming up, our new initiatives that are coming down the pike. And so, but also the final thing is our Substack. You could follow us on Substack and be
And
part of
pay
our.
that $5, folks. Don't be
Yeah, pay
cheap.
that $5 now. We can take up an offering now. And so
Yeah.
and so that is also at Institute for Common Good. Um yeah, so you can find us there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Yes.
Folks, shout out again to Mia for connecting us.
Yes, Mia,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, thank you. And you all take care of yourselves. We'll see you later. Peace.
See y'all.